Congratulations, Ron DeSantis. Mission accomplished. You win.
Much love the jank, but like my man got what 2% of the vote. You're putting him up as like a villain. Like if jank is your op, then you're not cut out to run for president. Little Rhonda has unfortunately ended his campaign. Folks, Ron DeSantis has dropped out of the presidential race and endorsed Donald Trump. The Florida governor, who once appeared to be Donald Trump's most daunting challenger, ran a costly, turbulent campaign that failed to catch on with Republican voters. And for me, I think the funniest reason why he lost the shot that he had was because he never had it. He never had it at all. He never had it. He got carried in Florida, barely defeating a dude who was then later outed as a guy who was doing meth with a gay prostitute in Fontainebleau. And then he also went up against another guy who was like, profoundly uncharismatic as well. And it turns out he absolutely got carried by Donald Trump. In the words of Donald Trump, he got carried by him. Donald Trump was right. And now he's gone. Why is he gone? Because he was so awful. Every moment that he seemingly appeared on camera was another disaster. Okay. He went after the king. Okay. He went after Mouse, and you can't do that. Mickey has got shooters. Mickey destroyed him. He was like stuck over correcting, trying to be like the nerdy Donald Trump, losing sight of something that I mentioned a million times over, which was that the culture wars are supposed to be fought on the boundaries as a distraction. And you should never actually use a culture war phenomena to, you should never follow through on the culture war and actually go and hurt the bottom line of capital. You're missing the point. And he did that. He did that while simultaneously being the least likable person, the most no riz having ass, absolutely destroying his chances. The media propped him up. The institutional Republicans decided this is our guy, not realizing that Donald Trump's charisma is the major reason, and his capacity to read the room was his major reason for his success. Donald Trump is the Barack Obama for white racists, okay? A big part of Donald Trump's appeal is his riz, and Ron DeSantis had none of that, okay? So check in on Nick Merckx. Hopefully his GOAT. I mean, I know that this was his GOAT. I know that he's probably suffering right now, but I hope he's doing all right. But Mr. DeSantis' devastating 30 percentage point loss to Mr. Trump in the Iowa caucuses last Monday had left him facing a daunting question. Why keep going? On Sunday, he provided his answer, acknowledging there was no point in soldiering on. Let's take a look at his 4-minute video. His campaign, remember, started off on Twitter as a massive failure, and his campaign is departing on Twitter, also in a massive failure. Let's take a look.
Greetings from Florida. The warmth of being home is a reminder why I've chosen public service. From joining the United States Navy and serving in Iraq, to representing the people in the U.S. Congress, and now serving as governor of Florida. And it reminds me why I decided to run for president, to fight for those who have been forgotten in this country. This is America's time for choosing. We can choose to allow a border invasion, or we can choose to stop it. We can choose reckless borrowing and spending, or we can choose to limit government and lower inflation. We can choose political indoctrination, or we can choose classical education. These choices
he wants political indoctrination, obviously. All
are symptoms of the underlying struggle to ensure that constitutional government can endure and that Western civilization can survive. And we launched this campaign to bring accountability to government, regain sovereignty at our border, and restore sanity to our society. We cannot succeed as a country if we allow our nation to be invaded, our currency to be debased, our cities to crumble, and our kids to be indoctrinated. The DC elites who facilitated this mess do not care about you, and they do not work for you. They work for themselves. They seek to accumulate power at your expense.
We'll just stop being governor of Florida for like a year to do this fail campaign. Yeah. Which is what Florida deserves, honestly. Because when has Florida had a good governor, chat? I mean, the guys that came before Ron DeSantis, you have, what's his face? You have the Lizard Man. Voldemort. You know what I mean? Like Jeb Bush. Like, think about it this way. Lizard Man Rick Scott, okay, who's I think currently the treasurer of the Republican Party, okay? He became president, or not president, sorry. He became governor of Florida after he was made famous for doing the largest Medicare fraud in the history of the United States of America. Like, Florida looked at that guy and went, that's my guy. Okay. Think about that. It's just like, it's just a very silly little place. People are so stupid. Yeah. And he won re-election with a 70% disapproval rating. So you cannot make sense of Florida. Okay. You just can't.
To pursue an agenda that is harmful to the American people. Citizens do not serve politicians. It is the duty of politicians to serve you. Talk is cheap. Actions speak louder than words. Reversing the decline of this nation requires leadership that delivers big results for the people we are elected to serve. I have a record of leading with conviction, championing an agenda marked by bold colors, delivering on my promises, and defeating the people who are responsible for our nation's decline. That is the type of leadership we need for all of America. Now, over the past many months, Casey and I have traveled across the country to deliver a message of hope that decline is a choice and that we can, in fact, succeed.
Remember when he went to Japan for absolutely no discernible reason other than to, like, I guess, act like he has foreign policy chops? That should have been like, that should have been our first indication that he's just like, you know, he wasn't cut out for this. You know what I mean? Like, that literally should have been our first answer, that he was just not gonna, he was not making it. Okay.
Again, as a nation, nobody worked harder.
Yeah. And then did this.
I'm not a candidate, so we'll see if and when that changes.
Like, come on, dog. Look at this bobble-headed motherfucker, bro. Look at this. Look.
Not a candidate, so we'll see if.
Yeah, it's just, I'm not a candidate. Just so bad. Just so freaking bad, dude. Yeah. Somehow, some way, this wasn't enough to win Ron, Iowa. Yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
And we left it all out on the field. Now, following our second place finish in Iowa, we've prayed and deliberated on the way forward. If there was anything I could do to produce a favorable outcome, more campaign stops, more interviews, I would do it. But I can't ask our supporters to volunteer their time and donate their resources if we don't have a clear path to victory. Accordingly, I am today suspending my campaign. I'm proud to have delivered on 100% of my promises, and I will not stop now. It's clear to me that a majority of Republican primary voters want to give Donald Trump another chance. They watch his presidency get stymied by relentless resistance, and they see Democrats using lawfare this day to attack him. Well, I've had disagreements with Donald Trump, such as on the coronavirus pandemic and his elevation of Anthony Fauci. Trump is superior to the current incumbent, Joe Biden. That is clear. I signed.
So lame. So incredibly lame, dude. I mean, he also personally had no smoke, had absolutely zero smoke for Donald Trump early on, and only towards the end did he open up on him. And even then, he did a horrible job at opening up on him. He just sucked.
Signed a pledge to support the Republican nominee, and I will honor that pledge. He has my endorsement because we can't go back to the old Republican guard of yesteryear, a repackaged form of warmed-over corporatism that Nikki Haley represents. The days of putting America...
And now he is literally... Okay, here's what's really interesting about this. He's endorsing Donald Trump, right? Which is not interesting because he's a massive cuck and he thinks that if he were to have a career in the Republican Party, he needs to kiss the ring. Not realizing that Donald Trump, if he doesn't like you personally, will fuck you regardless, like he did with Mitt Romney and also Christopher Christie, right? So all of that stuff will not change his future in the Republican Party. But here's the major point. The Republican mega donors recognized Trump's volatility as an issue. So the Republican Party set up a separate conference while CPAC was going on so that they could beef up Ron DeSantis. This was a big threat for Trump. Like, I mean, he's losing. That meant that all of the real institutional Republican Party defenders that control all the instruments of power within the Republican Party, from the think tanks to all of these like different groups that, you know, mobilize voters and whatnot, like all of that was supposed to go to Ron DeSantis. Okay? That's a big problem for Donald Trump. They propped him up as the guy who will defend the Republican Party, who will keep it together. Okay? Because a lot of people saw Donald Trump as too volatile, and also understandably saw the midterms as a major stain on Trump's reputation. Okay? They saw Trump-style candidates lose all around the country, and there's truth to that, because Trumpian politics, unfortunately, does not make for a good national campaign. Now, Trumpian politics changes over time. At the time, in the midterms, Donald Trump was still not shutting the fuck up about January 6th or how the election was stolen from him and yada, yada. It had gotten very boring. It had gotten very stale for the American public. You don't really hear about him speak on those things as much anymore. You also had the anti-trans narrative being like the major culture war issue for the Republican Party, which also failed. Right? Nobody gave a shit. Ron DeSantis was supposed to be the guy that galvanizes the base, except he was profoundly uncharismatic. And what happened after? He had bad political instincts, followed the Christopher Rufo methodology that actually caused the Republicans to have terrible gains in the midterms, like underperform in comparison to the projected expected outcomes of the midterms. So terrible instincts, no charisma whatsoever. The Republican Party's elites that want to keep the party intact recognize that maybe Ron DeSantis isn't the guy. So, in a last-ditch effort, they tried to mobilize behind Nikki Haley. You saw the Koch brother pull support from Little Rhonda and point in Nikki Haley's direction. Now, I personally believe that will be a failure as well, of course. But this failure for Ron is entirely in his hands. He had everything lined up for himself. And he had horrible political instincts and even worse charisma. And that is why every single time he appeared on camera, his popularity got worse. Ron did worse than Bloomberg money-wise. Ron DeSantis spent $150 million, okay, and only got 23,420 votes. That's $6,400 per vote, a record failure by a factor of 10x. Michael Bloomberg only spent like $450 per vote, the biggest dumpster fire in the history of presidential politics. To be fair, you're comparing it to a caucus that was sparsely attended, I would say. I think the caucus numbers were really, really low too, which I haven't really been able to make up my mind on what that means. I don't know if it was just because it was cold, but it does show me that spending $150 million in Iowa and then barely getting second place with like a couple percentage points over Nikki Haley, who did not spend that kind of money, is really, 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 really bad. It shows me that the Republican Party, which used to focus on winning, has also gotten kind of callous and maybe a little bad at politics because the Democratic Party gives them everything they want anyway. I feel as though the Democratic Party is like slowly moving in the direction of like the normal Republican constituency more and more, like winning out the educated white voters in suburbs that historically just want tax cuts and want to vote for the Republican Party, but don't want all of the stink associated with the crazies, the abortion kooks, and the because there's a smell to it, okay? There's a smell to the Republican Party base. You know how I make fun of anarchists for being crusty and not taking a shower? The Republican bases support the white evangelicals. They mobilize aggressively, but they are stinky. okay? They have a grossness associated with their passion, both for the issues that they defend, the issues that they're passionate about, but also in the way that they fucking defend it. You ever see a group of anti-abortion protesters? They're gross. They're insane. You ever see a group of anti-trans people? They're gross. They're insane. They're talking about children's genitals all the goddamn time. No one in the suburbs that has like anything above a high school education wants to be around people like that. Okay. And Ron DeSantis leaned into that a lot more than Trump did. Okay. Which is interesting. So the real question is, will Trump be able to win those guys back, at least enough of those guys back into the Republican Party? Let's keep going.
Last of kowtowing to large corporations, of caving to woke ideology are over. I thank all of our passionate supporters who have stood by us through it all. That we had people volunteer to come.
Bro, he's still doing it. He's still like talking about woke ideology, no more kowtowing. He's like, no, man, you're too online. You're too internet. Trump doesn't do this much. Trump doesn't do this much internet. He doesn't. Like Trump, there's a lot of memes surrounding Trump, but you're not going to catch Trump talking about memes and like talking about woke ideology. It's just like, I think a good turning point for me in the way that I analyze this campaign, obviously beyond like him going way overboard, way above and beyond attacking Disney and all this stuff, was when Trump was speaking to a group of donors. And he was like, you know, last time I didn't even talk about the trans issue. Nowadays, I talk about taxes and people go, oh, okay. But I talk about trans people and you go, oh, you're crazy. Like even he recognized that like the audience is a little wild, you know? I think Trump has better instincts than Ron DeSantis in that regard. Trump has better instincts than even the Democrats when it comes to Israel in that regard. He doesn't like Netanyahu. This doesn't mean that he's not going to be inherently more violent than Joe Biden's administration as it pertains to Israel, especially considering that the Abraham Accords is his administration's strategy, which was an abject failure. But Joe Biden looks cucked to Netanyahu right now, like unimaginably cucked to Netanyahu. I was watching an I-24 broadcast on it. In one of these books, he's just very openly says like, oh, here, I'll show you Trump's instincts in comparison to Ron DeSantis. Revealing. Here.
It's amazing how strongly people feel about that. You see, I'm talking about cutting taxes. People go like that. Talk about transgender. Everyone goes crazy. Who would have thought 5 years ago you didn't know what the hell it was?
Which is true. He was like way better on the trans issue last time around in the last election cycle than the current Republican Party is. He literally said, I don't care where Caitlyn Jenner shits. If you remember, here's a testament to Ron DeSantis' horrible political instincts for a national campaign. Ron DeSantis' campaign made an attack ad for Donald Trump. This was the attack ad.
I will do everything in my power to protect LGBTQ citizens.
If Caitlyn Jenner were to walk into Trump Tower and want to use the bathroom, you would be fine with her using any bathroom she chooses.
That is correct.
Can transgender women compete in Miss Universe?
Yes.
I can't remember my commentary exactly at the time, but I was like, imagine the median voter in Iowa seeing this and then immediately having an aneurysm. One thing I will tell you is if you look at the actual demographics of Ron DeSantis' campaign, he has captivated the youth. It's just that the youth are not fucking voting at all. And if they are voting, they're more likely voting for the Democratic Party. And that's the fucking problem. Okay? Ron DeSantis got the highest percentage of young voters in the Iowa caucus. Did you guys know that? This is what the future of the Republican Party looks like, by the way. This is what the young people that love the Republican Party are advocating for. Nazism. Straight up, groiped up Nazi bullshit. My dad literally commented on this and was like, what is this fucking shit? I'm in Iowa. Exactly. This is so stupid. A bunch of fucking weird, groiped up 4chan poll losers that he hired for his campaign were cooking up these incredible videos, not recognizing that like the American voter doesn't think this is cool. They think you're a gross shut in. Okay. Like this is made by internet people for internet people. It's so stupid. It's so profoundly out of touch. As I said back then, people that understand these references will never vote. People that understand these references are the types of motherfuckers who can't go outside, okay? They just can't. They will perish if they see the sunlight.
I cannot think of anything more horrifying.
It really has shut down drag.
Like the Humanity Report.
Laws that literally...
Like, immediately, it's like, bro, you put him on, like, look, he's great, wonderful guy, right? But you put him on your ad.
threaten trans existence.
Congratulations, Ron DeSantis. Mission accomplished. You win.
I personally think that it is, again, like, including having Jank on, I personally think that it is, like, it is a sign that you are too online to post Jank. Much love to Jank, but, like, my man got, what, 2% of the fucking vote in some random California jungle primary? You're having him as, like, you're putting him up as, like, a villain when he is not a person that you're positioning yourself against, that is, like, a person that people know. Like, if Jank is your op, then you're not cut out to run for president, right? Does that make sense? It's like putting me on there, right? Like, if someone running for president posted me and my commentary as, like, this is my major op, I would be like, dude, you're on crack. I'm like a fucking idiotic Twitch streamer. What's wrong with you? Aren't you running for the highest office in the fucking in the country, maybe the planet? You are not a serious person. You are an unserious person. It's like potentially having Elon Musk on this stream. At that point, he's platforming me, not the other way around. Do you understand? And it's a showcase that, I mean, it's basically showcasing that it's just like a very unserious, very online group of individuals that he had around himself. No, of course Twitch chat doesn't understand power dynamics. Duh. They're on Twitch. They think everything is, like, related back to Twitch. Are you crazy? They literally think, like, I'm actually doing Elon a favor by having him on the stream. Like, they have no way of, like, understanding how broad the world is beyond these boundaries. Anyway, so that like, again, big trouble.
Come to Iowa in the middle of a blizzard to knock on doors and make phone calls touched us dearly. No candidate had more thrown at him, but no candidate had so many committed volunteers and staff.
Yeah, this is another posting of an L, dude. You visited all the counties twice, 239 campaign stops in Iowa, and you barely defeated Nikki Haley, who didn't do any of that. $150 million dumped into Iowa. You barely defeated Nikki Haley. Massive, massive, massive failure.
Finally, I want to thank my wife, Casey, and our kids, Madison, Mason, and Mamie. Casey's gone far above
One of his kids, his name is Mamie? What the
above
hell?
and beyond in her support for our campaign and for our cause. She's not only a great wife and mother, she's a great American who cares deeply about the future of the country that our kids will inherit. Our kids have seen and done a lot on the trail, from playing on the famed Field of Dreams baseball site in Iowa to making their first snowman in New Hampshire. They are one of the reasons we fight so hard for what we believe in. Winston Churchill once remarked that success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts.
Yeah, by the way, DeSantis appears to misattribute a quote to Churchill as he drops out of the primary. The International Churchill Society has a long list of quotes that are often wrongly attributed to Winston Churchill, the former British Prime Minister. Turns out this is one of them, which is pretty funny that, like, he is such an abject failure. He is such an abject failure that he couldn't even fucking put a correct Winston Churchill quote.